Hello, YouTube. I'm Colleen Tappy. I'm back for another YouTube live stream brought to you by Princess Dental Staffing. So today's topic is writing a cover letter for a dental assistant position. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, but first I want to talk about cover letters in general. So, you know, when it comes to cover letters, there's really no fast and there aren't any fast and loose rule or fast and hard rules when it comes to writing a cover letter, with the exception of the fact that it has to be a business letter format. Your cover letter has to be formatted like a business letter. But other than that, regarding the body of the actual body of the cover letter, there are really no hard and fast rules. So there is some leeway for creativity. And if you go online, if you go and you Google, how to write a cover letter, it's going to give you a million. There are going to be a million different websites with a million different pieces of advice on how to do it, a million different ways, a million different things that you can put in your resume or in your cover letter. Okay. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk a little bit about, first I'm going to talk about the actual format, and I'm going to talk about, when it comes to the body of the cover letter, I'm going to talk about the things that I do in my profession and that work for my clients. Okay. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some common errors and mistakes that can be made on the cover letter. Okay. So let's get started. So let's first talk about, like I said, the format of the cover letter. Excuse me. So we're going to start at the very top, and we're going to, you're going to make sure that you have your name and your contact information. Now, most applicants, what they'll do is the header in their resume will match the header in their cover letter, and usually their header is their name and their contact information. So that's actually what I recommend doing, and because that way your resume and your cover letter are the same format, they look the same, and it kind of helps brand you. Okay, it kind of helps the hiring manager remember who you are. Okay, so first and foremost, your name and contact information. 2 spaces under that, you add the date. Normally 2 spaces under that, you're going to add the name of the person you are writing the letter to and their title, the company or the office name, and then the address of the company or the office. Okay. Now I say normally 2 spaces between the date and the name of the person you're addressing, just because if your cover letter is a little bit short, what you can do is you can add a few spaces to kind of help center it on the page and make it look a little bit more visually appealing. But normally rule of thumb is 2 spaces. Okay. Now, after the name, title, company, and or office and the address, 2 spaces, and then you have your introduction. So, dear Mr. Mrs. So-and-so, or if you can't find the name of the person that you're addressing, you can put to whom it may concern. I highly recommend doing a little research and figuring out who the hiring manager is, okay? Like the office manager or the actual dentist who's going to be doing the interview, okay? So I recommend using somebody's name and doing a little bit of research and figuring it out. It just makes it a little bit more personal. If you really can't find the person's name, then you can put to whom it may concern. I also don't recommend addressing it to a human resources representative or generalist, specialist, whatever. I don't recommend addressing it specifically to somebody human resources, because they're not usually the decision maker when it comes to the hiring process. They help with the hiring process, but they don't really make the decisions. So introduction, then 2 spaces after that, you have the body of your cover letter. It's normally about 3 or 4 paragraphs. 2 spaces after your last paragraph, you have your closing, which is normally, sincerely, kind regards, thank you for your time, something like that. 3 spaces under that, you type your name, and then 2 spaces under your name, you type enclosure, resume. Okay, so that's the basic format. So let's talk a little bit about the body of your cover letter and just kind of my recommendations for writing your cover letter. So again, no hard and fast rules here. If you want to get a little creative, you can. Just make sure that you are keeping a professional tone in your cover letter. Okay, so for the first paragraph, you want to make sure that you mention the position that you're submitting your resume for, which is dental assistant in this case. You want to mention how you heard about the position, if it was through a contact or if you saw it on a website. And then you want to make sure that you say something to the effect of, I think my education experience will make me an asset for this position, or something to that effect. Okay. So you want to, with a cover letter, you want to make sure that you're grabbing the reader's attention and that you're enticing the reader to continue reading about all of the skills and knowledge and abilities that you possess in reading your resume. Okay. So you want to entice them to read your resume and continue reading about you. Okay. So that's normally the first paragraph. Second paragraph, I recommend in the second paragraph specifically addressing the qualifications that are specifically mentioned in the job posting itself. Okay, so if you're not applying via a job posting, then you don't really have to worry about this paragraph that much. But you can actually list some like general knowledge, skills, and abilities, such as, time management, manual dexterity, your knowledge of dental terminology, and those sorts of things. But if it's specifically to a job posting, then I would specifically say something to the effect of, I understand that you are looking for a dental assistant with experience in A, B, and C, which I possess, or something like that. So normally about 3 or maybe 4 sentences for this paragraph will work. Now, in the third paragraph, this is where I think you can get a little bit creative, and you can talk a little bit about some accomplishments, or talk about some projects that you worked on, some awards that you've won, or something like that. But I think the biggest mistake in this paragraph, or in the biggest mistake in cover letters, I think, is that applicants normally repeat what's already in the resume. But why would a hiring manager want to read the same information twice, right? So we want to make sure that we have original content in our cover letter. It just makes it interesting and it makes it more catchy, okay? And in this third paragraph, if you don't have any specific projects or awards that you want to mention, or that are, if they're already on your resume, you can also go the route of saying, if hired for this position, this is what you can expect the following out of me, and have a bulleted list. So you can use a bulleted list here. It just helps kind of break up the monotony, the visual monotony of the cover letter. So you can have like about 3 to 5 bullets. Make sure you're using your accomplishment statements. It can be a paragraph if you want to, but bullets kind of, like I said, help break up the visual monotony. And then the fourth paragraph is normally where you wind up the letter, where you kind of close it out. And what you want to make sure that you mention is, you want to make sure that you thank them for their time in reviewing your cover letter, and reading your cover letter, and reading your resume. You want to make sure to invite them to interview you. Say something to the effect of, I look forward to speaking with you more about how I can fit your position, or I look forward to speaking with you and talking about the needs of your office and how I can meet those, something like that. And okay. So that would be the final paragraph. Okay. Make sure that your cover letter is 1 page. If it's not 1 page, then, you can kind of play around with the margins, or the text, the font size, all those sorts of things, but make sure that you've got it down to 1 page. Okay. So those are my tips and tricks for you. Those are my recommendations for writing a cover letter for a dental assistant. If you have any other questions, I know this was kind of a very broad overview of how to kind of write a cover letter for a dental assistant position. So if you have any specific questions, feel free to comment on this video. If you have any insights or thoughts about writing a cover letter, things that have worked for you in the past, absolutely feel free to comment on this video and share your knowledge with everyone else, okay? So thanks for tuning in today, everyone. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.